Well, welcome back. Now, when Jess and I were getting all excited because Kaffe was arriving into the studio this morning, we were talking about how do you introduce a man whose career and life has been as colourful as his quilts. We didn't know, so I will just go as far as to say, Kaffe, good morning. Thank you so much for coming in to join us.
I hope I live up to that introduction.
I think the proof is in the pudding. It's all around us. The studio looks incredible, absolutely incredible. Kaffe, your life, colourful, abundant, rich in all aspects. What would you say was the biggest influence on your style?
Wow. I would think the biggest single influence is the decorative arts of the world, really. Because I travel the world and I go to every museum I can get time to go to. When I'm giving a talk in some little town somewhere, where's your museum? And I go and I look at what people have done in the past, and that just serves up riches over and over. So I would say really looking at old carpets, old embroideries, the way people made hats, the way they made lace, you know, I mean, some people made lace with wonderful colors and things like that. And so all of these things are just grist to my mill, you know, and you go home with a million ideas.
But you never seem to forget. That's what really struck me in reading your books. Your memory for something that inspired you. There was a Christmas tree that you'd seen a designer do, and then 50 years later you say, oh, this inspired me, but how do you remember this?
Yeah, well, how do you remember it? That's very good. Well, you know, I'm terrible. When people say, how many ounces of mohair are in that sweater? I haven't a clue. Because I never count. I don't have the exact kind of mind that a lot of people have, you know, where they know how many centimeters of this and that are whatever. The things that I remember are visual. So if something floods my imagination with gorgeous color, I'll never forget it. You know, those impressions I'm a very visual person. I finally, at this great age, have worked out that it comes to me visually. And if it doesn't, you know, if somebody presents something in black and white, it's very hard for me to remember.
I'm completely with you on that. I mean, they were laughing at me upstairs. I've had a look through, over 30 books,
right,
Kaffe. I mean, when they say prep for Kaffe's show, over 30 books, where do you even start? But I wanted to start with your quilt books, because we've had these on the shows. And the one that has just been released is Quilts in Ireland.
Right.
And what
you're
really...
jumping the gun. It hasn't even been released yet.
Oh, really?
It's only going to come out to the public in September. So you know you've got a big exclusive here.
Hey, you heard it here first on 7 Quarter. Now, the way your life seems to work, just the most incredible coincidences. You know, you go to an art museum, you see a stunning piece of art, there's only one piece that grabs you, and then sort of within a month or so, you're sitting down to dinner with that artist. You know, you meet a film director, you say, hey, do you know what? You should really read this book. And you give it Midnight Cowboy, Oscar-winning film. Later, you know, these things happen to you. And you had a postcard of a beautiful house in Ireland.
Right.
And did that inspire your quilts?
No, but what it did was it made me think there's somebody out there who's got the imagination to take a little Irish house and paint it with little flowers and little insignias around the door and everything, and make it into a charming, beautiful thing. And I thought, I want to go and find houses like that. I thought, I haven't a chance in the world of ever finding the actual house.
But this is it. You go and you stay with your friend in Ireland, and you start to recce for places to photograph your book. And what do you find?
And we looked at a million houses, and suddenly there's this one little house on this little godforsaken road, and it just spoke to me. I just thought, there's something charming about that house. And so we went and we said, we're going to photograph a quilt here. And the people were inside, and they opened the door, and they said, oh, our father painted this house, and here's a picture of him, and there was the postcard.
And he was in. So there's the
actual
postcard there. And there you are, stood in the door. Now, it was
Yeah.
weather beaten. I mean, this postcard was a few years old by now.
That's right. That's right. Yeah.
Fabulous.
Yeah.
And actually, I've got one of my many pinnings here is actually. Oh no, that's another favourite one. Oh, here it is. That is the quilt that you put with that house.
And that's the most sensitive, gorgeous quilt, isn't it? Just all those little pastel colors and how beautifully they work with now faded decoration around the door. It's all changed kind of aesthetic, but it's still exquisite. And it went so well with that quilt. And
Just stunning.
Yeah. I mean, it couldn't be more perfect. And that's my favorite quilt in the book. It's not, one that I didn't make, but Eliza Lucy created that quilt. But she did such a beautiful job. And she used the colors so beautifully and the fabrics.
Now, you say this was one that you didn't make.
Yeah.
Is that in terms of design or in terms of you actually didn't stitch every piece of it?
No, we were given fabrics, and there's like a few people, like Brandon Mabley also comes and makes a quilt, and several other people contribute. I do most of them, but that's just one that I didn't do, and I'm very jealous of it because it's exquisite. You know, it's so wonderful.
Now, you've said this about your students, that they sometimes come to you and they say, but you know, how do I do this colour? And but actually, you said that sometimes your students inspire you.
No, absolutely. I mean, somebody will be crying beside a piece saying, "I can't get it," and I'm looking at it thinking, "Damn your eyes! It's beautiful." You know, you've just stumbled on expensive colors. You know, you've got a color scheme that people would kill for, and you don't recognize it. You know, you don't believe in yourself enough to see that that's possibly very good.
But that's one of the first paragraphs in your autobiography, is that you say, you know, when I look back on my life, I'm surprised at how much confidence I've had in myself, which is wonderful, because I think so many people are crippled by a lack of confidence.
You've absolutely put your finger on the point. You know, I often start a workshop or a lecture with just that sentence, that where did Brandon and I get the confidence that we have? Both of us had never went to art college. I mean, I went to an art school for a very brief time and buggered off.
Yeah, you know? Went, go to England, thank you very much.
I just walked out, you know. So I didn't even finish the course. But we both have this kind of innate confidence in ourselves. And we just know if someone doesn't like it, somebody else will, you know.
But is it most important that you like it?
Yes. Of course, you have to keep reaching inside to make something that is the best you can do for that moment. And just for that moment, you know, you'll get better the next moment. After you finish that one thing, you'll analyze it, you'll look at it, you'll live with it for a bit, and you realize it could have just been a little juicier, a little more high in color, or a little bit lower in color. Maybe I should have put the stoppers on and made it a little more subtle. You know, and all of those things come to you as you progress. But don't rush it. You know, don't worry. You know, we all have our first pieces that we started out with that are a bit awkward.
Oh, mine's so wobbly. But it's mine, and I love it. And then I can see my progression. I think there's a wonderful quote that you say an artist friend of yours said, and I can't remember it exactly, but it was along the lines of, just create, because your weakest skill will become...
You have done your homework, yes, absolutely.
Oh, you're going to be my mastermind specialist topic, let me tell you.
Very true. And
but your weakest thing will become your character,
your style.
Work.
Exactly. Don't worry about developing a style. You know, just do the best you can do, and the kind of quirky weaknesses that you have that are very personal to you will become your style. Like, it evolves. You don't have to think about that. You don't have to be self-conscious in that way. You know, just try to be as loose and free and flowing as you possibly can, and swim in the sensuality of the color that you're involved with. You know, just enjoy it to the hilt. Take it as far as it can go.
I wish someone had told my 15-year-old me that when I was studying art, that would have made such a difference.
Yeah.
And that's, I guess what we try and urge people here to do is that it doesn't matter if it's perfect, but if it's yours and it's made, take pride in that. Now, I've pinpointed a few just beauty. I mean, there are 20 different makes in each of your books.
Well, I'm very glad that you picked that one. I find this particularly kind of jewel-like and interesting. And we found this beautiful old room in Ireland that was painted like old. It was sort of a cross between aubergine and grapes. You know, just dark maroon room with these great, you know, portraits on the wall with their gold frames.
If I move it, I can actually...
And it's slightly shabby, you know, which I love. You know, I love that kind of old, worn elegance. And it was a perfect place to photograph this very bright jewel quilt.
I'm going to skip to this one. Now, worth saying, this book at the moment is exclusive here at Soho Quarter. But this is what I mean. You went out... recceing for places to photograph your book. Who else could find an electric blue bike?
And up a little tiny side street, you know, like I just glanced up this little alley and I thought, I see a tiny bit of orange up there. That looks interesting. And I rushed up there and here's this exquisite fruit and vegetable shop that this girl had put together. Wonderful old retro sign saying fresh start, you know, at the top. And she had painted her bicycle bright blue, and that was sitting in front with these gorgeous carrots that smelled so sweet and lovely. And so those carrots are sitting there. And I said, can we hang quilts on your walls? And it's slightly raining and, you know, everything else is miserable. And this is like the golden sunshine of the Mediterranean or something, you know. And she was so nice. She loved it. Did
she know who you were?
No, she hadn't a clue, but she just loved the quilt. She just clicked into us right away and just enjoyed it. And so, you know, we're sending her a book now, you know, which is lovely. Yeah.
Oh, that's brilliant. Now, we've got an overview of the book. I mean, I could spend an hour just looking through the book, but we've only got you for 2, and we've got a lot. So here's a brief synopsis, if you will, of some of these books. Now, this is the Ireland book, just full of beauties. For me, the standout is this house, this beautiful house that you went in search of and found, against all the odds, found. But also in here, there is a beauty of wildlife. They are in the rain, bless you. I love that you actually have coordinated your umbrella there. Someone's thought about this. And you know, some of the leaf prints in here mixed in with the artwork is just stunning, absolutely stunning. I mean, just look at this. Just gorgeous.
I almost fell off into this river while I was trying to adjust that quilt.
Oh, God. Oh, hang on, we've got some more. So it is worth saying, with each of these, they laugh at me here, Kaffe, an awful lot, because I say your books are coffee table books, absolutely, because the inspiration is in there, but also they are functional, and this is a big thing, isn't it, with you? Form and function. Yeah. So you've got the beauty for half.
Exactly.
And
we want to always find a location that's lush and colorful and it's going to show off the quilts and explain the quilts in a way, because the aesthetic in the quilt has something to do with where we place it in the world. But also, it should be practical. You should be able to sit down and make these things and have very clear instructions.
And here it is.
Yeah.
And there is this one last little picture in here that just made me laugh. Oh, where is it gone? Was it in here? Oh, here. Now, I know humour is important for you, and I love this. Yeah.
Well, this is Brandon Mabley, who is always with me. We're always working on projects together, and he just slipped off behind these big leaves and, you know, appeared like an elf in the woods.
Yeah. Absolutely brilliant. Yeah. This is $23.95, available here. It is your brand new book. How very exciting. We've got a few copies to signed as well that we are giving away as a competition. So if you buy anything Kaffe related today, you'll go into a prize draw. So that's very exciting. Thank you for doing that. Right. Now, En Provence is the next one that I'm going to look at here. Right. Now, When we look at your designs, yes, you design so many of your beautiful collections,
Right.
but you do collaborate as well.
Yes. Yes.
So in here we've got some of yours.
Yeah.
We've also got some of Brandon's.
Brandon Mabley, yeah.
But also who keeps making an appearance. And in this book we actually meet a little bit more about him. These are Philip Jacobs' floral designs.
See, we're like the Three Musketeers. We're the Case Collective, the three of us. And they were looking for another designer, and I said, I know somebody who does the most beautiful, classic furnishing fabrics. And he, because he had this wonderful archive, this huge cave full of old tablecloths and curtains and things like that. And he would take these wonderful flowers and shell forms and things from those curtains and make them into artwork. And so I say, he's the perfect person for us. But I do his colors. And when he said to me, I love to do the painting, but I don't really like to do colorways, I went, well, guess what? I do. I was so excited, because then I was able to really express myself. And also to then make all of his fabrics work with our collections color-wise.
It's stunning.
Yeah.
It's always so stunning.
Yeah.
And because, stripes and patterns, they come through very heavily. But to then mix those with the florals is just divine. And I think that's why it's making timeless classics.
Yeah.
Because none of these things go out of fashion.
Well, that's it. I mean, and when you say timeless, it's true. I mean, he's taking things from pre-Victorian times and Victorian times, or the 30s or whatever. Wherever he finds a good, wonderful, classic kind of print, he will produce it. And he brings it to me in generic colors, and then I fill in my kind of color schemes.
Now, talking of color schemes, Quilts en Provence, this goes back to your memory again.
Yeah.
Traveling around Italy, you remembered a color.
Yeah.
That ochre.
What I remembered was a whole town that somebody said is shades of pink and red, and I went, what? That's like my dream. It's my imagination come true. And so we drove through this town very briefly, but it stayed in my mind that there would be a whole town that would have a color scheme. And then when we went back to it, it actually had a lot more ochre, but it was all the colors of the earth, the siennas and the ochres and things of the earth around there. Yeah, I mean, like that cliff was just solid, kind of apricot color.
Yeah.
And then
wonderful.
we made quilts that kind of echoed those colors and put them on the background. It was just fabulous.
You couldn't be cold in a place like that, could
No.
you? With a warmth of colour like that.
That's it.
You're always warm.
Golds and pinks and rusts. I mean, it was. You were spoiled for choice. That's one of my favorite places.
Really?
Isn't that a wonderful wall? The texture and color, and that little funny checkerboard quilt just looks gorgeous on that wall.
So these quilts, these were made for the book rather than the other way around.
That's right.
Because I know that the Italian book, it was the other way around. You went and found locations for the quilts you'd made.
Well, it's sort of a toss-up.
Okay.
Well, what we do is we go and we recce a place and we think about it, and then we say, right, that place has lots of possibilities.
Yeah.
It's got pastel passages, and it's got rich color, and it's got kind of contrast black and white. It's got everything that we need. And then we go and we make our quilts. And we like to make our quilts in lots of different moods, so that, that little pastel lady who never would touch any high color doesn't get offended. She's got her little bit, and somebody else who loves, dark, strange, masculine quilts has something for them, and everything in between.
Fabulous. We've got lots of questions from viewers as well. Laura, has asked, is there a room in your house that isn't full of colour?
Yes, Brandon's apartment downstairs is very beige.
Beige?
Yes,
You love beige in
It
your
is
house?
actually very off-white. But it's very restful, and it has beautiful light.
Okay, we'll let him
I
off
go down there
page
when
then.
I need a little vacation from all my high colors.
Do you know, actually, one of our producers yesterday, she said, "I wonder if Kaffe ever needs to go and sit in a white room." Just. I said, "Yeah, but white is all the colours. So then you have all the colours."
Well, listen, I showed a picture of one of my very ornate rooms, and this woman said, "Where do you go when you have a headache?" Well,
Yeah,
I actually
for a walk.
I get totally stimulated by color. It makes me feel good.
Yes.
When I see wonderful color, I just think, oh, there is a God.
That's it, isn't
You
it?
know?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I
Lisa
believe.
has a question too. Is there a colour combination you don't like? She says she doesn't like green, doesn't use it.
Yeah, sometimes there's colors that are clashing in an unpleasant way. I mean, there can be clashes that are thrilling and jazzy and to be sought after. But there are certainly people who do a beautiful kind of sensitive colorway and then throw in an element that is too contrasty
Right.
and that kind of breaks the spell that they've
Right.
created.
Okay.
And that's sacrilegious.
Well, because
And like putting the wrong border on a quilt. Very often people will put a solid dark border on a very sensitive quilt, or something that's too light, so it shows up the quilting, and that's very sad because it should all be of a piece, and the border should echo what's inside the quilt. I feel.
Because you talk about finding that quest to find the imperfect juxtaposition. I think they were your words of that colour.
Yeah.
And so when you go about creating a quilt, can you talk us through you have I've got another question as well, but if I've just finished this very quickly, you have you hang a sheet and then put the pieces on the quilt together to see how
That's
the
right.
layout?
Yeah, I have a flannel wall that I've created that is a neutral color, and you can stick when you cut your piece of fabric, you can stick them on, so you can create the whole quilt and adjust it if it isn't right, and then stand back and have a look at it, and that's very important. But proportion of color is very, very important. But
Okay.
you got your question coming through.
Oh no, I've got a question. Yes, I have in my ear. It's from Sonia. Oh, which of your projects would you put in a time capsule and why? It's a great question. Well done, our son.
Tell her I'll have to take a rain check on that. I'll have to think about it. I have to give that some serious thought. Yeah.
Well, there are a few decades of work to consider here.
Well, exactly.
Aren't they? So my next question is, where do you put it all?
Well, there's no room to live in my house. Let's just put it that way. Every corner, every chest of drawers, every closet, the whole upstairs attic is just crammed with stuff.
Is it? Are you one of those people that loves to to the untrained eye, it would look disorganized, but actually for you, you know where everything is?
More or less. But the thing is, people tidy up on me.
What? How rude.
Yes. And so then I don't know what anything is. And I mean, so I dread cleaners coming. I know it has to happen. It's like King Canute and the waves. You've got to stop this thing. But I just, I make a mess wherever I go, but I know where things are in that mess.
Oh, I hear you.
I can reach for that pair of scissors or whatever.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Because I read somewhere that you actually had a fear as a child that you wouldn't manage to be organised.
That's right.
As an adult.
You have done your homework.
Is
That's
that
very
still
true. I can
something that
remember
affects
saying to my
you?
mother, "How will I ever be neat enough to be a grown-up person?"
I'm still wondering myself.
Yes, I know. Because I knew that it wasn't in me. I mean, that's the thing. Well, it's very interesting because Liza Lucy, who I teach with sometimes, when we go to Houston, there was one woman arrived and she was very, can we say anal? Anyway, she was very together and everything was in little crisp piles. And she had like her dark fabrics and her light fabrics and everything was labeled. And Liza said, one of the things about creating is you want to make a nice creative mess and then you'll spot some color. And she just went like this little pile and she just tossed it like a salad. And she said, now you'll spot a little bit of orange at the bottom of that pile, which will be the perfect thing. Well, this woman nearly had a stroke. But it's true. I mean, a great scrabble of fabric can give you wonderful ideas, and you'll spot possibility. Because what we're trying to do is enter that kind of unconscious part of ourselves that is very creative and that grabs possibilities out of the air. You know, like, for instance, somebody might walk in this room in a few minutes who has a combination of clothes on or a hat or something that just, wow, that little combination of colors is exactly what I'm looking for the next project. You know, it's those kind of things where things just arrive in the ether for you.
And it's finding those combinations. I mean, you talk about collections, and it made me smile because in one of your books there's a beautiful photograph of a collections of stones.
Yeah.
And I know that you were brought up in California on the beaches, and it just made me smile because my 3-year-old son is obsessed with stones. They are his treasures.
Yeah.
And he has this pile of stones. We're not allowed to touch it at all. They are his treasures. He doesn't have money. This is the best that he can manage. But growing up in Big Sur, were you heavily affected by nature?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. And of course, you know, that world of stones is such an incredibly mysterious and rich world, and it's so subtle. I mean, you know, one woman yelled out in one of my lectures, "If you only could work with one color, what would it be?" And I thought, well, if I was restricted to one color, why would you ever do that to me? But if I had to, and then I just said gray. Gray would be the color, because I thought of beach, and I love it when somebody comes to my workshops and does a very subtle quilt in shades of gray. I'm totally thrilled.
Really?
Yeah.
But you did go through a white phase.
I went through a totally white phase where I wasn't interested in color at all.
That seems
I
strange.
painted white china on white cloths against white walls, and that's all that interested me. I didn't want any interruption of color.
You'd have to get the cleaner in then, wouldn't you?
Oh, yeah.
That white.
I had to be organized. Yeah.
Now, Italy is the next book that we're going to have a little look at here. Now, this a riot of colour. What have I written here? Yeah. I've written something to remind myself. Oh no, I've asked that already. The beauty of this, and I did ask you earlier, was the location found before the quilts or vice versa?
Right.
Because
well, this is Cinque Terre, which is these fishing villages on the coast of Italy, where you had the most beautiful classic architecture and rough old fishermen's houses and things like that. But look at how perfect that is with our quilts, the texture of the quilt.
Oh,
and it echoes in the color with these beautiful bits of architecture.
It's beautiful. It's almost like sort of a Fibonacci sequence, isn't it? It's just divine. But you see, then this.
Yeah.
And I looked at this and I thought, please tell me you had the. Is this just one of those magical coincidences that happened to you that you did blue and white quilt?
Well, I saw these blue and white things when we did our first recce, and I thought, there's a lot of blue and white down there, and it's very fresh, and it's very. So I went home and I just made. This is very difficult for me, just to do blue and white.
Well, that's
restrict
why I
myself.
kind of
Boy,
highlighted
I
it.
had to really beat myself up just to stick to blue and white. But I thought, you know, the awnings and the things were so beautiful, and the coverings of the boats. Why wouldn't you just do blue and white? Let's just see what happens if we just hold back all this tide of color and just stick to something crisp and strong like that. So it was fun.
But you've got, I mean, blue and white china is a bit of a thing for you as well,
is.
isn't it? So,
Yeah.
I mean, here's here's a quick video, because there's so much in these. I mean, the artwork is in the quilts, it's in the photography, but again, loving function.
Yeah.
You've got your 20 inspirational quilts, then how to make them in the back. And that's the same for all of these books. Sure. Half of it is your inspiration, the other half is, and now let's get making it.
And this is like a great sampler, this quilt, called Chiaroscuro, where you get these wonderful big chunks of geometry. But you see, when we went to this beach, we went in the winter, and there were no umbrellas.
So they wouldn't have been out.
And so when we got to the umbrellas in the summer, oh my God!
Well, that's just it, because you've got that green in there, you've got that orange in there.
I know.
But your life is a riot of incredible coincidences.
Yeah, serendipity.
It just happens to you. In one of your books, you just talk about, thank you, angels, looking out for me there.
No, absolutely.
Because
absolutely.
you are...
Yeah, I mean, look, there's a quilt that we made. We had no idea where we were going to put it. And then when we arrived at the beach and there was these beautiful stones, there are stones again in these gorgeous, warm terracotta colors and grays and things that were just perfect for that quilt.
Oh, on a dog walk the other day, my 3-year-old asked me, Mummy, how are rocks made? And you just go, how do I explain to a 3-year-old the concept of who has no concept of time or size how a rock is made? Just impossible.
It's a great quote.
Yeah, absolutely. Wikipedia. But there we go. There is that quilt. Look at that. Yeah. It's almost 4 in 1, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, yeah, and that's the thing is that's a quilt that could give you an idea for a lot of things. You could take a lot of different patterns, put them together, but also you could just take one pattern out of that and just do the whole quilt with just the one pattern if you wanted to.
And this is where you get all the instructions as to how to make this. And similarly, if it's a pink page, then it's one of my favourite. Yes, it is. I love this one. Not just its name, but I've got to think about circles at the moment.
Yeah, and that was fun, because it was all these circles on the bright colors, and so we found where were we going to put that, because it was so complex. And then there's this little marketplace full of bangles and big sunglasses, with weird and wonderful colors.
So it was there. Yeah. I found it. There we go.
Yeah. I mean, look at all these sunglasses.
Brilliant.
They were just perfect color for that. It's called Losing My Marbles.
Yeah, that is a standout one for me. For where I'm at the moment,
it was one of the most popular quilts in the whole book.
Really? Yeah. Oh, it can be yours, $22.95. You can be losing your marbles with Kaffe quite happily. Oh, now Ireland. I just need to give you a little update on Ireland. Halfway through the stock already.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, they're getting a jump on the market, which is great.
Well, just stunning. Now, we've got a competition. If you're buying anything Kaffe today, then you will go into a prize draw to win a signed copy. So if you've already bought one, great, you can give that one to your friend and keep your signed copy. Right. And these are so precious. Jess earlier, do you know she's brought in a book that her mother was given, signed by you back in 1992.
Right.
I think she's hoping that you might sign it again.
Yeah.
Update. Check your signature.
Sure.
Was it
I do
real?
that. I often do that. Because people bring a book that they don't even realize was signed. And they've had it for years, So I sign it again.
I love this one as well. This is another standout one for me.
Yeah.
It's colorways.
Yeah. And that's such a simple quilt to do.
Really?
You just take these simple, it's all one block, which is just a diamond.
Yeah.
And the diamonds slot into each other, so you can get these patterns slitting into each other. And it's quite subtle greens and pinks. I like that very much.
Oh, it's just beautiful. From a completely nosy point of view, because I'm fascinated by your home and the paintings, because nothing seems to be left unpainted as well. You are an incredible artist, as well as textile designer, knitter. You're known for so many different things. What do you actually paint in?
What
medium?
Oh, I paint in acrylic.
Okay.
I used to paint in oils, but
it takes so long to dry.
It takes time to dry, exactly.
And smells.
I'm impatient. I've got places to go and people to meet. So I mean, when I sit down to paint, I'm quick.
I mean, that's another thing, that instant gratification. Jess was saying, sometimes I find quilting just takes too long, and it's interesting to hear you say, no, I want that instant hit, that instant fix as well.
Yeah, because you bypass the analytical brain. That's one of the things I say to people in my classes. They take forever because they put up a piece. No, that's wrong. Take it down. Put up another piece. And I say, nothing can be wrong. Put up a lot of stuff and then edit.
Right.
When you see the relationships, that's what's important. Don't, be trying to be perfect with each element right from the beginning. Be a slob, and then you can edit.
Brilliant. We've had so many questions, Kaffe. I mean, as we're going, you're answering a lot of them anyway. But thank you so much for your questions. Keep them coming in. If there's a standout that we haven't, that we will try and get around to them. But thank you so much. Pauline's commented, "What an amazing guy, Kaffe, you're a legend." And the word inspirational is another word that keeps coming up. so many people saying that you're an inspiration. But what struck me is, in your lifetime, you've also been surrounded by incredibly inspirational people too.
Absolutely. I was just going to say, I'm glad that I can be an inspiration because my past is just filled with wonderful, inspiring people. You know, great artists and great craftsmen who were just doing things and working with their hands and having, you know, sometimes just watching a good cook in the kitchen or
that's art in itself, isn't it?
Oh, totally. You know, that instinct and that, you know, a touch of this and a touch of that and put it together and ooh, tastes good. You know, that I mean, I think it has a big parallel to color, you know, cooking and music too. People who make music, I'm fascinated with, you know, who have an ear for the pitch of music and all of that. And they make our lives so rich.
But do you like to listen to music whilst you quilt?
Yes,
or is it
but
the
I
radio?
I love to listen to interviews and words, and particularly since I'm a foreigner coming from California, I find it fascinating to be in these rich aisles for accents and stories and, you know, the way the Welsh speak and the Scots and the Irish and the Geordies and Yorkshire and all of these wonderful accents. You know.
Producer Paul wants to know if you like the Brummie accent.
I do. I love it. I used to find it very flat, but actually I find it fascinating now because I'm listening to the thoughts that are coming out of that, which, you know, like in America we have the Southern drawl, which usually, you know, when you grow up, you have this prejudice that it's thick as hell. You know, people who have that accent just couldn't possibly have an interesting thought. If you actually listen, there's a lot of poetry and beautiful thinking that comes out of the South. It's a very rich place for stories and for imaginings and philosophy. And so one has to just, but anyway, the accents of this country, I just love. And so I listen to the radio a great deal. And I listen to interviews. I listen to people's stories. And also I love plays and poetry.
Well, this was what made me laugh. I worked for the Royal Shakespeare Company for 4 years,
right.
And I remember somebody saying, "Well, of course, Shakespeare would have had a Birmingham accent," and this big Shakespearean fan nearly falling off their seat. He would never have had a Birmingham accent. What are you talking about? It's like, well, it's like 20 miles down the road.
Yeah, that's true.
He would have had a Midland accent.
Yeah.
But I know you're a big fan of Shakespeare.
Yeah.
And you actually were lucky, I say lucky enough, I think the RSC was lucky to have you actually design for them.
Well, I felt incredibly lucky and blessed. You know, when Greg Doran called me up and he said, "I'd like you to design as you like it." And I thought, oh, that sounds wonderful. And then immediately in my mind, I saw Elizabethan costumes and Elizabethan embroidery. And, you know, because it's such a rich period for beautiful prints and beautiful little beading and lace and all the folderol and the elegance. And then he said, "I see it like a stumpwork box." And I thought, perfect.
Yes.
That's exactly what's in my mind. And so I went out and I got big furnishing fabrics and things. So the clothes looked like they were made out of fabrics. That, you know, like little dolls on the stage, you know, that were dressed in marvelous fabrics of the period. It was wonderful. And I knitted things. I made rugging. I did all sorts of
Huge cushions.
textures. Yeah, and a huge cushion. I sat and they said,
During rehearsals?
Yeah, we said we can paint these, you know, quickly to look like embroidery. I said, no, I'm going to embroider them. So I sat and I made these big Shakespearean flowers. And then they were on stage for the lovers to lounge on.
Oh,
it was wonderful.
fabulous.
And I just sat making them while I listened to the play over and over and over. That beautiful language going through my head.
It's like learning another language, isn't it?
Totally.
When you listen to it, the more you listen to it, the more you understand. But I'm glad that you did authentically make those flowers, because I know that with their costumes, having worked as a dresser there, there are no zips, let me tell you. They are laced up, those bodices, and when you've got a quick change and you've got to get someone out of one and into their next in seconds, you're wishing for a zip.
Well, you know, when I went to the room where they make the costumes, and all the costume makers were there, and they said, we want to just congratulate you for putting it in period. And I said, oh, I thought you'd be upset that you have to work harder. And they said, are you kidding? They said, our last production was up-to-date black suits. And we hated it. But we know how to do bustles and, you know, bodices and all of that stuff and the underwear that goes with it and everything. So they were in seventh heaven.
I know exactly the time
job.
frame that you were there because I was working there then.
Right,
so
right.
beautiful.
Yeah.
Quilts in Morocco.
Yeah.
For me, this is about the shoes.
Yeah.
I
Well,
love
it was.
the
Can you
shoes.
imagine going into Morocco with our quilts and finding? See, these are
perfect.
shoes, a rack of shoes that was just exactly like the quilt.
It was made for it.
Yeah,
It was absolutely
absolutely
made for it. But this is another place that you said, because this is photographed in Fez.
Yeah.
And you said that this was a place that was talked about with reverence
Yeah.
by those that came to. And I haven't
Yeah.
mentioned, I should have mentioned, your parents owned a fabulous restaurant that was actually featured in a film.
Right. Right.
And they've
The
recreated
Sandpiper. Yeah.
that
Yeah.
in Paris.
That's right. That's right.
How strange was that, to walk out of your parents' restaurant
That
from
was
Big
just
Sur into Paris?
to walk off the streets of Paris into the studio and see my home. You know, with the coast painted, and I sat on the terrace. And of course, after a while, you'd forget that you were in Paris, and I would be all day long sitting in this restaurant, which of course I grew up in. I helped to build, and then I would walk out into the streets of Paris and smell chestnuts roasting and things, and hear accordion playing, and I think, wow, this is surreal.
Yeah.
Really bizarre.
But that was then, of course, because was it Elizabeth Taylor, for tax reasons, couldn't
That's
be
right.
in the US for more than 2 weeks a year.
That's right. Yeah.
One of my favourites.
Yeah.
Look at that.
And you see that we found this old abandoned house, I mean, that was just being worked on with these beautiful details, and it was just perfect. The tile floor and everything just worked so well with that quilt, which is just simple striations of zigzaggy fabrics.
It's when we show your fat quarter bundles and things on the show, I see different things in them, and sometimes I look at them and I think, is this a rock formation? Is this? Sometimes I look and I think, oh, when you see things under a microscope, this is what they look like. It's nature stripped back to its tiniest form, and I don't know if that's actually what it is that you had envisioned when you created it.
No, I mean, you've different things, but what's so thrilling is when you've made a quilt, no matter what the influences are in that quilt, when you take it to a location like this, imagine finding that rack of shoes.
It's perfect.
That was so like the quilt. That's where Brandon and I, and it's very spontaneous. I mean, we hit a place we maybe have one day to run around and look at all these different locations, and we have like little photos of each quilt, and we think, oh, this one will go here, oh, this one will go here. And then we make the little notes, and then we come back with a photographer, and we do it very quickly. But you know what I love about this? I don't know if you realize, this is me sitting at the bottom here, tiny.
Wow.
This is an enormous mural of one of their tiny little mosaic fountain pieces, blown up huge. So it was this massive thing on the side of a big shopping center.
And you're a tall man. That's hard to be dwarfed.
Yes, I know. But no one notices it because it looks like I was photoshopped in there or something.
But you are actually there. It's a beautiful, beautiful book, and something a little unusual.
Yeah.
But it's, this is evocative to me of the colours, the smells, the heat. You get all of that from this book without the airfare. It's brilliant.
Yeah. Well, that was a beautiful hotel that was like an old palace that had been turned into a hotel. And so it was perfect with these wonderful painted doors. And then to put the library quilt, which is just, I mean, to me, when I walk into a room and I see racks of books, I'm very happy. If I don't see any books in a house, I'm very unhappy. What do they do? Don't people read?
When did you start reading? Have you always been an avid reader?
It gets more and more so as I get older. I devour books. I love my time to sit and read, or get in the bath with a book, or just read before I go to sleep, or read on train trips and things like that. I just love it. I devour books.
Is there a genre in particular, or is it everything?
No, I just love everything. I love things that are imaginative. I love the story of people's lives. The arc of someone's life is always fascinating. If someone bothers to sit down and write their life story, it is very, very interesting. And so I've not read a dull one yet. And so I'm interested in biographies, but I'm going back over the classics and reading Trollope.
Oh, really?
Yeah, lots and lots of him. And just fascinating. And those stories really stick with you, those novels.
Yes.
They're
Do
beautiful.
they inspire quilts in themselves and designs?
I think it all goes into the big, craziness of your imagination, sure. Because they describe clothes and rooms and things. Yeah, there's the layout of that striated quilt. It's just great strips of fabric, but it's really fun. And then I break it so that it isn't just straight across. There's a sort of break in the pattern, which I love.
Yeah, it's this one that made me think, was that inspired by a rock formation?
No, that was inspired by an Aboriginal painting that I saw in Australia, yeah. And it was done in very, very bright colors. And so I did a few of them in bright colors. And then when I got into the softer, kind of neutral colors, I loved it. That was my favorite of those ones, when it was just very neutral.
Because we've had that fabric on the shows, and I always
Jupiter,
feel,
it's called, yeah.
Yeah, I always feel drawn to it, and we've had
Yeah.
this debate about where did that come from?
It was an Aboriginal painting, and it was. I mean, when I go to Australia, we're about to go to Australia again in January, and it's like, it is so full of inspiration, and most of the inspiration comes from the Aboriginal art, because it's just dots or stripes or some very simple geometry, but it tells such a story and it has such humanity.
So if you could live in any period of time, where would you live?
I might go back to Elizabethan times.
Really?
Yeah, because it was so rich.
I might see you there.
It was so rich. I mean, I would have loved to dress up in those clothes. I mean, the men had such expressive clothes. It wasn't like black suits now.
No, you did actually train briefly as an actor.
I did.
And who was your classmate?
Dustin Hoffman. Yeah.
And you dismissed him as, possibly, not going to do that well, that short little chap.
Yeah, exactly. He'll never get anywhere. Well, us big, tall, gorgeous guys, we're going to make it. And, no one's ever heard of us again, in the acting world. But it was fun. That was very good training, because it got you to step out on a stage and be a presence.
Yes.
Which has, I love to get up on a stage and talk to people about color and creativity, and take the timid souls of this world and encourage them to play with color and not to be so self-conscious about it. Loosen up and just enjoy creating and putting things together.
I think sometimes we are inhibited by a fear of going wrong and that it has to be perfect. But what I loved in hearing you say was throw away the colour charts. Forget that. Forget your colour wheel. Don't necessarily worry about that, but just use your eye.
Yeah. You don't need to know a theory. It's not a mathematical problem. You're not going to solve it that way. You will solve it by playing like a child. And I always say, I've never seen a boring child's artwork. They are always juicy and to the point and gorgeous. And, you just want to look more and more. And so just try to get back to being a child, to being that young, experimental, playful person.
Well, I was going to say this earlier, and because we've not met before, I didn't want to insult you, but there is an element of the child about you in that fascination and that seeing, almost for the first time of things, to actually see and not just take things for granted, which is actually a skill, a real skill.
Yeah.
And is that something that you work on, or has it come from being an artist, or?
You know, I remember when I was a young artist, when I was painting only, and people would say things like, you know, you have to find the child in yourself. It's impossible. I don't know how to do that. You know, I can't be that innocent, that pure. You know, because you are self-conscious when you start out. You know, you want to have a personality. You want to be taken seriously. You know, you want to sell your work. You want people to think you're okay, and blah blah blah. So you have to get through all of that. And realize after a while that whatever you do, you know, what I used to say is that whatever I make, someone's going to like it. It could be the most awful pile of crap, but somebody's going to come in and say, oh, that's the best thing you've ever done, and I want one just like that. You know, because it's happened to be. And it's just one of those strange things. I never worried when I first started knitting. You know, I would just knit up crazy things. And it would just suit somebody down to the ground. And when they would put it on, it would look beautiful. Suddenly, because they liked it, they would give it an aura, and it would work on their body.
And now, talking of your knitting, is this true, okay, that you learnt to knit by asking someone after a trip to Scotland, you bought some beautiful yarns, and you asked the woman sat next to you on the train to teach you to knit?
Yeah, because I got onto that train, and I had 20 colors of the most beautiful yarns I've ever seen in my life. And I thought, I've got to get a girl to knit me a sweater. Oh, she won't be fast enough. I can't stand her. I hadn't met her, but, you know,
already you don't like her.
Yeah. I mean, she's impossible. Yeah. So I thought, all right, the only way I'm going to be satisfied is if I make this myself. I might be slow, but at least I know what I'm doing, and I will be able to be putting an idea together. And so I thought, I've got to learn this technique of how to put these yarns together. And I just said, there was a woman sitting across from me. I said, do you know how to knit? And she said, yes. And I said, could you show me? I said, I've got the needles. I've got the yarn. I'm ready. And so she showed me. It took me 20 minutes to learn.
That was it. You'd got it.
And I was off. And, you know, jumped out of the train and started knitting.
Now, to be fair, most people, when they are honing a new skill, will take years to create and to refine. The first thing you knitted, you took to Vogue.
That's right.
I mean, let's not mess around here.
Yes, being very shy and retiring.
To Vogue.
You know, the thing is, I am from California. You know, it's like, I mean, I'm not going to sit around and be all English and shy and self-effacing. I thought, you know, damn, this is gorgeous. You know?
It needs to be seen.
I mean, I knew it was kind of a mess technically, but I hoped that whoever I showed it to would overlook that and see the genius of these colors put together. And thank God, the woman I got, Judy Britton, who just happened to be the most wonderful, far-seeing, poetic kind of Irish woman, and she just looked and she said, this is where knitting is going in the future. Oh. So I was off.
Fabulous.
And it was wonderful, you know, because that way I was able to play with color and create stripes and all kinds of things. I was able to create ideas that could then be woven into my weaving ideas.
Because you are a master of so many different skills. We've talked about your love of blue china.
Yeah.
And when you went to Sweden, what a joy.
Yeah.
Is it a coincidence? Morocco, you know, when from your childhood you heard a lot about it from those coming to your parents' restaurant. Sweden, you said the proportions of the buildings felt right.
Yeah.
And
because you see, the thing about America and Australia and places like that is that our backgrounds are full of Russian and Scandinavian carpenters and German carpenters who came and built these wonderful Victorian houses. I mean, I remember the Victorian area more because that was like our past. And so these porches and these window frames, the proportion of everything, you know, just had this kind of thing. And when I got to Sweden, here was this wonderful kind of proportion of things. And I realized that's where my past comes from.
Yeah.
The barns were red, just like the barns in America. You know, everything. It was so exciting. But this was wonderful where we found this old merry-go-round. And so I had made this very bold kind of circus stripe quilt that worked well on that.
These are quite, I mean, it's quite similar to the bold stripe that we've got in our quilt today.
Yeah.
I love that this comes
Well,
through
you see,
time and
I love
again.
ecats and batiks when they have a strong profile. You know, a lot of batik is very sort of moldy schmoldy, you know, all mixed up kind of munge. But I love it when it's got this crisp, you know, and I love crisp stripes. You know, I've loved stripes all my life, and you know, they never get old.
No.
They come and go in fashion, but you know, they're just exciting.
It is yet another beautiful, beautiful book.
Yeah.
Talking of stripes, I mean, wow.
Yeah, and that was very simple. Just took three colorways of this one stripe fabric, and then just put a woven stripe right in the middle, and that so it's all stripes again. Very very similar to. So here we are back again. You know, a good idea. I just recycle constantly. I come back to it and back to it when I have new fabrics and new colors. That's the other thing about when I create my colorways. I do it like a paint box. I'm giving people possibilities to play with. So here's like sort of wonderful, warm autumn colors, but there's also, you know, there'll be jewel deep colors and there'll be lovely light spring colors and so forth, so that people can constantly come back and refresh and come back to those same possibilities.
It's like being a kid in a candy shop, isn't it? All these colours is amazing. Now, we do have today a competition for you. Anyone buying anything Kaffe related will go into a prize draw. So, Kaffe, I'm going to ask, could you please sign one of these, which is going to be given away? Just so that you see.
It was actually done.
The man himself, pen in hand. Now we need to compare that with Jess's.
There we go.
Thank you.
I think it's gotten a bit bolder now.
But hasn't everything?
Yeah, I know. Well, you know, I used to arrive in country houses in England and see where the Queen had written Regina, quite in these great big letters. And so, you know.
Who gave the Queen a Sharpie? Thank you for doing that for us. Gosh, so many questions. I haven't even, I've got a stack of questions here. I haven't even delved into them. But we're an hour in already.
Right.
We've got another hour with you. We're going to let you go and have a cup of tea.
Right. Lovely.
Maybe a wander, have a look. Hey, if you do get a chance to wander outside around here, graffiti art, is that anything that
I've already seen some fabulous things. Yeah, we wandered into a little parking lot and it was just full of the most amazing images. Yeah, beautiful.
I did wonder if you'd see that colour.
Yeah. When I see a bit of colour, I run.
Yeah, well, maybe this is it. Maybe we can get Birmingham to inspire a quilt.
Yeah, or a book, maybe. You never know.
A book.
You never know.
Amazing.
Yeah.
We will see you back in an hour. Thank you so much. Please do make sure that you grab your Kaffe Island book because we've got them here first. So don't miss out on that. But next up, we're all about a cushion, a Kaffe cushion. See you in a moment. Hello, welcome back to Kaffe Fasset Day. Again, in the studio. Thank you, Kaffe, for coming back. We've talked books.
Right.
But of course, the books are based around your fabrics.
Yeah, yeah.
And we've got some, for the first time ever actually here, by the half metre, which is incredibly exciting.
Yeah.
I don't think I'm alone in wondering the process that has to happen in order to get to a piece like this.
Yeah. Well, first of all, this is inspired by big embroidered skirts in places like Yugoslavia or Bosnia or places, you know, where they did these wonderful big romantic skirts with beautiful ribbons and beautiful embroidered flowers. So this is called embroidered flowers. And it's made to look like those wonderful skirts.
Because you used to do that form of dance, didn't you? You used to do
folk
dance.
I actually did. Yes, I forget. You know, you have read your books. Yeah.
Makes me sound like a secret stalker.
I know. Well, we used to sit actually and embroider our shirts. You know, like because I was doing like Ukrainian dances, and we would have you know flowers and things down our shirts. It was wonderful.
Did your knees ever recover from that?
Oh, no, hard. Well, yeah, they did recover. Thank goodness. But that was very hard on the knees, doing those proshadkas, kicking out. Yeah. Yeah.
Gosh. And so that was the inspiration behind here. So this is the fabric. How does it start out life?
Well, I shall show This is the artwork. So we have just a painting where we're seeing that. And then once I've done the painting, the first row is the colors that are actually in the artwork. The second row is the next colorway, and then the next colorway, and the next colorway. And this is the pink colorway that you've got there. This is the original.
Yeah.
That's how it printed up.
So hang on, this is
the original colorway. Yeah, coming
wow.
out. And can you imagine the thrill when that comes back from the printers and you see, oh my God, they got it like my artwork.
Really have.
And they really got the sense of the paint and my, wonky flowers. I don't want things to be too perfect.
Let's just almost pop that. Look at that. Just.
Yeah. And you never know.
They're going to get it from overhead. Look at that.
What the scale is like until you actually see it suddenly on the fabric, and you get the repeat and the yardage, and it's so exciting because then you can start making quilts.
Not just. I mean, this is just stunning. How long does this take?
Well, this takes not that long. I mean, I might start first thing in the morning and finish by the evening.
Is this acrylic or is this gouache?
This is gouache.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is a nice opaque watercolor paint.
It's lovely to work with because unlike normal watercolor, it does have that vibrancy of color that sometimes gets washed out with.
Well, it's also mercurial, and so you're getting these mysterious, strange areas. So that this makes a very plain. They know exactly that this is yellow, and then it's going to go into green, and there's going to be that much green. So they get a very exact thing to work from. So
you start to create. Yeah. But you also have to have that mind of having a color chart, a map of color down the bottom.
Yes, absolutely. And then what I do is I paint out colorways. Let's see if I can find my little colorways in here. Yes.
I pinch myself. We've got Keith in the studio with his original artwork. This is just incredible.
See, these are the colorways that are repeated down there, which don't look like much there, but that's what they're going to look like. So the blue, there's the blue. And then there's an orange colorway, and there's the pink that you have the fabric of.
We've got the pink there.
Yeah. And see, that's just taking a photostat, roughly painting over it.
No, is that how it happens, really?
That's how I work it. So that everything that's red here becomes blue here, or a deep pink here. And that's how it works.
It's just incredible. So how do you decide? Do you pick similar tones to replace each colorway?
No, I mean, what you want to do is bring the changes.
Yeah.
So I wanted, that yellow to be very different from the blue and very different from the red. So that, as I say, I'm creating a paint box for quilters. So they've got their yellow for their wonderful kind of explosion of autumn colors, or summery colors, and then they've got their blue for the sort of more wintry, icy kind of colors, if they're in that mood. Whatever mood they're in, I want to supply the paints for it, as it were.
Do. I really think you do. We're going to sell out of these. Please do check out your baskets because they're not always easy to get hold of, your fabrics, by the half meter. So to be able to get a great long length of this fabric is just so exciting.
And we, as collectors of fabrics, we're all a bit cautious and we buy small amounts, and then we wish, when we get back to the studio, why didn't we buy more of that? It was wonderful. So I love it that you're selling it in half meters. That's perfect.
Don't kick yourself and wish you'd got more. Yeah. I think of your fat quarters and charm packs as like a taster menu. You can go to some restaurants and you can have the taster menu and a little bit of this and a little bit of that.
Exactly.
But there will always be that dish that you want the full amount of.
Yeah.
That's what we've got for you. That's what I see today as, which is just, I can't believe I'm holding. Holding an original cake. This is so exciting.
Right.
Oh, wow. Gosh, now.
That one's called Paint Pots, by the way.
This is producer Paul's favourite.
Well, I love this because, I mean, I used to look at those ads for paints, where they would have a lot of, the tops of the paint cans, with the colors in it, and things like that. And I used to just love it. It's so simple and childlike. And I thought, it's so easy to just do a nice circle, not, exact.
But it's an organic circle.
It's organic circle, exactly, so that it has a humanity to it, I feel. That's what I like. And so I've painted those out, and then I've done all these lovely kind of color themes. And so this comes also in deep reds, it comes in blues, it comes in many things. But here, it's a perfect coloring for, making something like this quilt.
It's like a palette of sorbet. It makes me a little bit hungry. It's beautiful. And just the simplicity of it. And I know it sounds a bit strange, but because the circles are organic, and like you say, it has that human element, it makes me feel comfortable, and it makes me feel able to use it and make a mistake, and that's okay.
Yeah.
And not to beat myself up about,
no, absolutely.
I made a mistake.
Yeah. I mean, when you have beautiful color, you don't have to be that exact. When you're doing something in pure white or something, you have to be very careful, because every mistake you make, every stitch, but in something like this, I mean, the quilting can be very free, because you're not going to notice it that much. The patterns are quite powerful. One of the things that I was just thinking about, this is called the Artisan Collection. And what I was trying to do here, I noticed you were commenting on the fact that it's 2 colors, which is very unusual for me. I almost never do just 2 colors.
Yeah, that was yes.
But I wanted the freshness of 2 colors, like the gazania and the raked. Because what I feel, by the way, this was inspired by just looking at a plaster wall.
Somebody really?
Scraped, the way they would just take their big tool and they,
pretty sure
rake
we
it across the wall.
With this sort of pattern on as well.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
And you were saying it's like a ball of yarn. Somebody actually did it in circles, and it looked exactly like balls of yarn. It was amazing.
Do you mind that people see different things in there?
I love it. This is grist to the mill of creativity. And what you're doing is you're throwing out an idea, and you hope somebody's going to get the idea to use that as a dragon's eye, or as a landscape piece, or something, or a piece of a house, or something like that. I love it. This is one of the things that, for years I used to go around quilt festivals. I would never see a scrap of it. I would see one tiny little piece of my fabric in a quilt. Now I get to see lots of people's use of my fabrics, and they're so creative, and they give me so many more ideas.
Really?
Yeah, oh yeah, totally. I mean, I go around with a little notepad when I go around looking at quilts.
Are you going to
Quilt Festival? I'm going to the festival. I definitely will be at the Festival of Quilt signing books.
Oh,
but also, I'm going to go to Houston, which is the big
that's
quilt
the sort of
in
Mecca
October.
of quilts.
That's right. That is Mecca, yeah.
Oh, is that
See, this is called squiggle. And
yes.
When I look at old quilts, when I see a fabric like this, which you often do, the Victorians loved this. And when this cuts up, as you were doing in your little pots with on the cushion, beautiful. It really it has a nice profile, don't you feel? So this is artisan, where I'm thinking of ethnic fabrics like this, the batiks and the ikats in the middle approach to color.
Because here, having ikat, I'm not quite sure how is the correct way to pronounce it, but it's because it's got that organic feel to it. There's something earthy about it, which sounds strange for such a vibrant colour, but it's.
But and it's made by hand, and it's they take the warp and they take these threads and they cut, they tape off certain areas so that you get the pale in between, and then they dip it in dyes. They paint the dye on so that this is like a painted warp, and then they put it out. And it's incredible what they can do. And but it's wonderfully organic. You can see that just comes in a kind of wonderful wiggly way. It isn't prescriptive.
I was looking at the top one where it almost looks,
Yeah.
When you see music, when you see people producing music and you see those waves, it's almost reflective of that. And how do you get music in a quilt?
Yeah.
And yet it's there.
Yeah.
It is.
Well, that's it.
incredible.
It's got this rigid geometry, which is softened by being handmade fabrics. So all these are batiks that are just specially dyed, wonderful the way they make batik, with resist and dyeing it, and so that you get all these kind of wine tones going through it and so forth.
Now, batik traditionally is made with, as a kind of a resist with wax. Is that the case with these?
I'm just see this that goes through in this one simple zigzag design.
Fabulous, fabulous. Right, let's have. And
but they're nice and spiky, aren't they?
Yeah.
They're very fresh.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And so I thought, you know, for a two-color pattern that's just nice and jaunty, you know, it just.
Our other presenter, John Scott, has a penchant for a vibrant shirt, shall we say.
Right.
This would be amazing.
It would be beautiful. Because it's quiet, it doesn't scare the horses, but it's got a quiet life about it.
But it changes with the colour, and that's the beauty of it. Because, like you say, that one that won't scare the horses.
Yeah.
This one might. Holiday does not come with the fabric. You get to choose your holiday, but it's got that warmth, hasn't it?
Yeah.
My niece is 3, and she would kill for this colour. She, you know, this is absolutely her. My brother was not going to dress her in pinks and things like that. And of course, that's the only colours that she wants.
Well, see, and I love colours like this, which are kind of close-toned and harmonious. But it is fun to get contrasty, and you know, that blue against orange yellow, and you know, look how that works with this. But that is a very kind of punchy colorway.
Yes.
You know, let's dance on the tabletops.
That's a kitchen colour, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's going to look amazing in a kitchen.
Oh, it would.
Yeah.
It would. Yeah. And you could make all sorts of things. You know, table runners, placemats, you know, tea cozies, whatever.
I'd love to see that al fresco dining with this. And again, were these things like this, were they, when you had the beautiful outdoor restaurant in Big Sur, were these the colours that were there?
Sometimes, I mean, you know what we've done? I mean, yes, I mean, my mother loved color, and so she spent a lot of time making incredible kind of burlap covers for cushions that were thrown all through the restaurant in bright reds and blues and wonderful colors against the sort of rustic wood of the building. Was just terrific. And then she had director's chairs, these canvas chairs that were wonderful colors. The plates were all different colors. And so lots of color was coming in and dancing about. And the food looked great on these colorful plates. So that was very nice.
Did you take this mishmash of crockery in your house now? Is that the same?
Oh yeah, totally.
Nothing matching.
And one of the most lovely experiences I ever had in these British Isles was going to Ireland in the very early days when I first arrived here, and looking in an old tea room. It wasn't opened yet, but I was just staggered that everything on the table was a different pattern. You know, it was willow pattern and rose patterns, and you know, the saucers, the teacups, the plates, everything was different patterns. It was a joy. It was like a gypsy caravan. You know, absolutely wonderful. Totally up my alley.
Oh well, this is it. I mean, your child lived, the people that you met, and the experiences that you had. If you had a grey upbringing, would you still have found colour?
I think I would have. I think it was irrepressible. You know, so, I mean, when I get in a place that doesn't have much color, I'm very miserable. You know, it's like I need, and it can be very subtle color. You know, as we were talking about before, the shades of stones on a beach can be very, very quiet. It doesn't have to be circus colors, although I do love a good circus, but, you know, quite tastefully decorated and restrained. Restraint can be very, very exciting, and particularly in a soft gray palette or a white on white palette and very delicate pastels. I'm absolutely thrilled. I mean, for instance, this is interesting because here we've got Raked in blue and white, which of course is such a classic.
Yes.
And I've done a quilt like this. You want to see it?
Yes. Do I?
I've got it right here.
Is this?
And this is...
I've seen this in a book, have I?
No. This is an absolute sneak preview. This hasn't come out in anything yet. But this is Raked. And then, you see, I've just dropped in my range of these simpler two-color.
I love it. There's a simplicity in it, and yet a complexity. It is that juxtaposition.
Yeah, well, you
it's
see,
beautiful.
I was looking at modern quilters who do these very simple things, and there's a kind of electricity about that. I love extremes.
But
And then
look at
gazania on the back.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Really beautiful. So is this going to be in
That'll be in a book eventually.
the Birmingham book?
Yeah, perhaps.
The Birmingham book.
Yeah.
How would you put the graffiti into a quilt?
I know. Well, there are ways. Oh, we could do it.
I challenge
Everything is possible.
Well,
Okay.
you know, I believe that you once said that you wanted next to do things on a grand scale. Sort of like knit a cover for the Empire State Building. Any closer to that?
No, or cover it with tiles. You know, I love tile cultures, don't you?
Yes.
When you go to Spain or Mexico and they have tiles everywhere, I just love it that they bothered to, you know, do the stair risers with beautiful little bits of pattern, and so that even walking upstairs, you have a little lift, a little feeling that life is a bit more pretty. You know.
Yeah. Each step is a bit better.
Yeah.
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 Oh.
And so I love that when someone pays attention to things like, you know, like when I go to Portugal and they've made mosaics in the street, you know, the pavements are these wonderful swirling patterns. It's just wonderful.
But you mosaic yourself, don't you?
I have. I've done a lot of mosaic. I love it. Because it's very much like patchwork.
Well, they tie in,
It's porcelain
don't they?
patchwork.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What a
Yeah.
beautiful thing. And
Yeah.
so you can take your patchwork into the garden.
Right. And you break up a little rosy teacup and you add that to a stripe or a check or something else that you find somewhere, or just a plain color. See, plain colors can be very exciting too. This is just taking my Aboriginal dot print, which is a very fine little dot print that I've added to the collection. And it just gives a texture to a nice blast of, look at that wonderful purple and the lime green.
Love those next to each other.
And you know the sort of, you know, raspberry yogurt color and sky blue and so forth. So all of these can go together just to make a very sharp kind of graphic pattern.
But then you've given the
Yes. Well, these
blocks
are
in
ribbons
here.
that I've designed.
beautiful.
And
they feel gorgeous.
Yeah. And wasn't that fun just doing a tumbling block in bright colors and just having that be a ribbon?
It did, and a ribbon that can be used in so many different ways. That's the beauty of it.
Yeah.
To have that little splash of colour anywhere you choose.
I love to put them on shirts.
Yes.
You know, you'll notice that I've put one in here, so forth. Yeah.
I did, and actually it was the light just catching on it that made me go, ooh, do a double take.
And that's a very nice thing to do for a button band because it almost gets lost. But a guy can wear that, you know, quite discreetly and have a little bit of juice and sexiness about his outfit.
I'm a fan of a lining, of a vibrant lining, because it's almost like you say, it's almost it's that little secret of
a great paisley or something underneath a very severe navy blue suit. Yeah, I love that.
We have had hundreds of messages for you, Kaffe. I mean, we will never get through them all. Right. But Claire from Bristol says, this is the best morning ever.
Oh, that's nice. How lovely. How very nice.
Lots of people saying that they love you, they love your fabrics. You know, what a charmer as well. you have charmed our British public out there. I mean, what drew you to come and actually eventually make your home? Because like you say, you've been a world traveller. Why London? Why England?
You know why? Because I met Christopher Isherwood, who wrote the book that became Cabaret, you know, the musical.
Yes.
And he's a wonderful writer. And he was about 60, I suppose, when I met him. And I thought, of course, he's just about to die. He's so ancient and old. I'm way past that now.
Chicken.
But he had a spark in his eye. He was like a teenager, you know, a turned-on teenager, not a sulky one, you know. And he was talking about all these wonderful things that he had experienced in life and how he saw America. And what I realized right away is that the English have a hilarious sense of humor about America. I mean, you know, we take ourselves quite seriously sometimes, and suddenly people were just falling down laughing at things that were happening. And I thought, you're right, it is funny when I see it through your eyes. So I went out and got every book of his that I could find, and a lot of them were about England.
Right.
And so when I read those, I thought, I want to go and see this place. It really made me want to come to England. So that was part of it. And then when I got to England, I came across painting, because I was very much into painting at that time.
Well, you were. I mean, probably.
I mean, living off my paintings.
Yeah.
And so it was a very exciting time. And what's nice is when I come back to the fabrics now, I get to paint again. And that's very exciting. Let me just show you. This is like a design that's called Dream. Ooh. And that's based on Japanese influence. So just taking these oriental flowers and doing them, and then putting them on a kind of cloudy, dreamy like background.
They are actual little clouds.
They are like little clouds, yeah. Which is something I love. I love the little textural things that happen in the back of, brocadey patterns and things that happen in oriental prints. And then I've done it in quite rich colors.
When I see this, you have got all the colors.
I do have all the colors. And, and we've added to it, so there's many more than
fabulous.
this now. There's now about 10 or 15 different colorways. And this is our classic, so the people can still buy these in their shops.
You see, I'm not sure if you find color or if color finds you.
Well, yeah, that's a very good question, because, when I travel to some place like Japan, the first thing that strikes me is they love pattern. They love the play of pattern. Oh, yes. And they're inventing things all the time. They'll take an animal and they'll do it abstractly. They'll do it realistically. They'll do it this way, that way, with stripes, with checks, with flowers. And so you're just constantly dazzled by the invention. And then, of course, you realize that the colors are so subtle and so beautiful. I mean, the Orientals have a way of just getting straight to your heart with color.
Yes.
And so it was very exciting to use that influence. And a lot of it, people can recognize when they know Oriental arts, that it comes in a lot into my work.
Can we expect a Japanese book then?
Boy, I would love that. If we had the budget to fly a photographer out to Japan and go do a book.
We've got cameraman Tom, they're going, pick me, I'll go. I think you have lined up here.
That would be wonderful, yeah. I mean, it'd be wonderful to do a film at the same time, wouldn't it?
Oh, there you go. Producer Paul says he'll carry your bags. I mean, what can I say? We're very accommodating here at Sarah Quarter. We're lining up to help you make that happen.
Yeah, it would be wonderful.
Now, what else?
Do you want to see one more piece of artwork? This is, we talked about Philip Jacobs, who was part of my, the Kaffe Collective is Brandon Mabley and myself and Philip Jacobs. Now, Philip brings in the classical things. So this would be looking at old references of shell prints and so forth. So that's like...
oh, Kaffe, it's beautiful.
Isn't that just a wonderful, great landscape of shells? And fantasy. It's like a sort of...
There is a fantasy element, isn't there?
It's like a traveling circus or fair,
And you look at it, yes, there's that sea element to it, but also, unicorns have been incredibly in fashion. It could almost be a mystical
absolutely.
unicorn horn coming out here.
Yeah.
You see so many different
Yeah.
things.
And it feels like flags and ribbons, and it's already a patchwork. I mean, let's face it.
It is. and this is what I was saying earlier.
Yeah.
Is that as you cut out just maybe even just a 5-inch square, you have so many options of making it different.
Like you could do a whole quilt just taking lots of background and little floating images and just do something very delicate like that. Or you could get into the dense overlaying patterns. There are many ways to go. But anyway, he brings me the fabrics in this generic kind of colorway. He would take this one color scheme, and then what I do is add to that my own way. So there's the colors that I bring in, and I color up his painting. So you can imagine what those are like when they actually become patterns.
Because Philip Jacobs said to you, he doesn't like color.
Well, he doesn't like to paint color. Yeah. So there's the blue colorway. And it's so interesting to see, how very different it looks.
Because this is almost circusy candy and carousel.
Yeah.
this is very much underwater.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know if we, there we go. There's,
Yeah.
oh, wow.
And that came out very nicely. And then a very delicate spring way of going pale yellows and lime greens and things like that. And then we have a pink colorway with browns. You see, I brought in to here a kind of tawny brown and very antique-y kind of colors.
It does, yeah. Who would have thought that shells could go into shabby chic and feel okay there, feel happy there?
Yeah.
But, you know, there's so many home furnishings where you see sort of duck egg blues and teals and things like that, and pinks and browns. And how lovely to be able to incorporate this gently in.
Oh, yeah.
Beautiful.
With just a classic stripe or a check or a polka dot or something, you know, and then, you know, drop the shells into it. And then, of course, that's always my most popular is reds. You know, when you hit it with reds, you've got buyers.
Do you know, the red is almost sold out in the flower fabric that we've got today. This is beautiful. I was always under the impression that blues were the most popular in terms of colour. So I'm interested to hear you say that actually, no, reds.
Well, reds were.
For you.
Blue is now becoming the great seller. Yeah.
Really?
I mean, yeah. And I'm not interested in the selling and the money part of it, but what interests me is that lots of people are interested in blue and want to make blue quilts. So for a long time, it was red hot mamas doing their red and pink and orange and so forth, and which I love. You know, I love all of that.
Yeah.
When I first went to India and I saw women standing in the desert waiting for water, and they were all wearing shades of reds and pinks and oranges. And I was thinking, they're suffering, but they look so beautiful. They look so gorgeous, and they're waiting in this.
Suffer in a beautiful way.
Yes, I mean, oh my God. It was very, very difficult to sympathize because my eyes were just out on top. And I've never forgotten it, and I've used reds ever since, all together.
And that's, you never,
because the Indians taught me that.
You never forget. This is what is incredible about you. It's just your capacity for remembering these over decades. It seems to be you just recall these things.
It makes the impression on me that I suppose other people have that same feeling for music or for mathematics. I absolutely do not. But color is my music and my maths and my everything. You know, color is something I understand. It's where I was born to appreciate.
You see, and yet you say that you're not mathematical, and yet the proportions that you achieve, and there is a mathematical element of that which makes it pleasing. Whether you, a natural mathematician is what I would possibly call you without even realizing.
Yes, well, it's true. I mean, you know, when the mathematicians start to talk, and they have this passion for what they do, and they see everything in life that's mathematically explained to them in their minds, then I think, yes, there is something to it. You know, there is. I mean, because pattern is my second biggest obsession in life.
Yeah.
And because pattern is the vehicle for color. But pattern, of course, comes from maths.
Yeah.
And the patterns of maths, when you start adding things up and all of that play of numbers, it becomes very exciting.
Well, you see, you think about the Renaissance period, and you have Leonardo da Vinci. And he was not only an incredible scientist and mathematician, but also the most incredible artist. So it's okay, I think, to have those hand in hand.
Well, and the proportion of, you know, joints of a hand, of the eyes, the symmetry of a face, all of this is exquisite. And, you know, I love to draw. I adore to draw. And I sit down, when I draw things and reduce things to line, then you understand the symmetry of a face and the beauty of three little pots sitting on a table or whatever. You know, proportions of things have an electric excitement about them.
Now, your line drawings were your bread and butter for a long while, weren't they? And different from the way that a lot of people would do. I mean, certainly when I was drawing, it was, you know, you'd do a few, you'd sort of sketch it out a little bit. But actually, you had an art teacher that told you, do one line.
You are amazing. You are amazing to remember all these things. But that's true. He said, keep that pen on the paper as long as possible and keep that line going. And there's a secret to that, because it makes you think, well, if I'm going to make that line, I've got, what interrupts that line? Where do I have to stop it to make the next object overlap with that, etc.? So it makes you kind of analyze the structure of things in a very organic way. It's not analytical like a mathematician, but it is, you're analyzing spatial relationships. And it sounds highfalutin when I say it like that, but it's very organic. I can teach people quite quickly and easily. You know, I've taken small children and taught them to draw very wonderful line drawings.
Really?
Yeah, by just giving them a few pointers and say, just observe everything and what touches what. You know, like, if a man's hand is here, then it's, you know, that the edge of that has to stop at the hand and so forth when you're drawing it. And you start to see life like that.
That's incredible, because you went to cities and you drew entire, you know, cities in this
architecture. And my favorite thing was going into a huge old junk shop full of, you know, chaos of objects, you know, spinning wheels and double back chairs and all this stuff, and I would just sit there and I would just draw all of these things, and somehow my mind is wired that I can do that.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
It's special. It's so special. Yeah. Do you always travel with a notebook to draw?
Try to, yeah. And I have diaries, and lots of sketches get into the diaries, and little notes about things to remember.
Now, how organized are your diaries?
Oh, terribly disorganized. Because when I did my biography, and they would look at my diary, and I would say, "Oh, here's a good thing," and they said, "When did that happen?" That's what, the editor wanted. When? Oh, well, I don't know. I mean, I didn't even put a year here. I wouldn't have a month or a day or a year. I just would have a bit of writing. So anyway, it's very chaotic.
But you just written Saturday.
Saturday. Yeah, something happened.
Month, year, details. Tricky to decide which fabrics and where, how to match them all. I do love this one. This one sings.
You know what's fun is to put things together that vibrate. And so, like, I would put a sassy hot lime green with that.
Ooh.
You know, or maybe a really shocking pink or something, you know. So
can we mix these in?
Yeah. So that's the thing, is when you start to put the things together and you get those relationships.
Have a play cave.
Yeah.
So pink.
Yeah.
Producer Paul's loving the squiggle. He would.
Yeah. And by the way, we were talking about the Aboriginal inspired fabric called Jupiter, and that's the original colorway of Jupiter. That was like the painting. That's not bad on this.
It's
yellow.
not, is it actually?
Yeah.
There are no accidents. There are design choices going on here. Look at
Yeah.
And then what would you layer then in next? We've got to have a rummage.
Yeah. Well, that's going to be quite happy in this story. But then you could and then bring in this kind of blue into the situation. That could be fun.
In playing with these colours, do you find it becomes easier over time?
Oh yeah, sure. I mean, because you get more and more confidence. It's that confidence thing we were talking about. That when you play and you begin to realize, oh, that works, and then you actually sew it together, and you actually take it out to Italy and throw it over an old fisherman's hut, and you be like, oh my God, it does work. It looks great. One of the things about when something doesn't look right, it's not quite in the right location, perhaps. And that's the way with fabrics. When fabrics kind of find each other, when they're happy together, and what I do is I put a lot of stuff up on the wall, and then I start to edit. Well, this is kind of distracting. And when I take this away and take that away, oh, now it's starting to sing. You realize, oh, you had things that were too heavy or too bright or too light or too dark. And it was overshadowing a delicate little story that was trying to happen or a bright story that was trying to happen. And it was getting watered down by something that was too light. So you just play in that way.
Do you take photos of it when it's up on your felt wall?
Yeah,
and
I have a
see?
reducing glass, which
Oh.
makes it all come tighter and smaller.
It's like Alice in Wonderland.
Yeah, and so you look at it like that, and it's like taking a photograph of it and reducing it down in size. Then you can see, oh yes, immediately that little red corner stands out. That's the odd man out. That's what's not working, and so it shows you right away.
Because when I was drawing, my dad always used to say to me, if something doesn't feel right, turn it upside down.
Yes,
And then you see what's jarring.
absolutely.
But
Yeah.
it's that.
I would
it's that
do
way of
that,
doing it.
or sometimes I would put my if I was painting, I would put my paintings down in the garden, and I would go up on the roof and look down at it, so I see it from a really big distance.
Oh, wow.
Or anything just to shake up the way you're looking at something. That's why I make all my students stand back from their work and look at things from a distance. It always helps.
You're going to have to stand back a long way from this. It's huge and beautiful. I don't think I could hide it away in a bedroom. It needs to be out.
Well, I'm telling you, walking into the bedroom would make it look like fun. Oh, yeah. And this was really fun. You know, this was a design, when I first did it, I called it Turkish Delight, because I was looking at, you know, details of Turkish architecture and you know, and kind of combining that with paisleys and things like that. This one I think is called Carpet Design. But I love it. Just big, simple blushes of color.
Fabulous.
And it looks great, you know, with the...
Do you know, there was mixed feeling about that backing.
Really?
In terms of there were those that were like, well, that's just as beautiful as the front. You can't hide that away. And I said, well, if you put it on a bed, you just have to turn it down so that you've got that. Yeah. And then there were others that say, well, actually, no, I'll just put something plain. I'll just buy another backing. Yeah. And then I would have all of this to play with. Yeah. So it's, but I like it as it's like the lining of a jacket for me. It's that
exactly.
surprise of...
And let me tell you something. When I'm in Houston and I go around the quilt festivals, what I love to do is, without white gloves, take my quilts that are in the exhibition and turn them over. And so I pull it back like that. And everyone looks at the front and they're very respectful and, oh yes, Mr. Fasset, that's very nice. And, you know, and then I turn it over and I get applause. Because there's always big roses or, you know, I try to do something fun and surprising on the back. Because I think when you turn over a quilt, it should have a wonderful zhuzh about it.
This is your humour again, isn't it? This is your humour in fabric. This is every corner a surprise.
Well, you know, we're in the business of theatre. We're making theatre out of colour.
Yes.
That's what I feel.
Yes. Do you feel that about your home when you come in? You know, this is because it must be strange that things you have those pieces that are permanent. You know, there's a love for them that means that they have a permanent place in your home. Yeah. But then some are going to be transitory. Surely they're there fleetingly.
Oh yes. Yeah, and that's nice to bring the changes. You know, to put up a different painting now and then, or to, you know, I love it when you have a birthday party or Christmas and you bring out a wonderful piece of fabric that only comes out at Christmas time. And then you know it's a special time. Yes. And you put that red tablecloth on. You know, a friend of mine died who was a great painter. Right. Wonderful painter. She lived to 102.
Oh, wow. Okay. So.
Because, you know, fabulous
incredible
life. Oh, fabulous life. It's only to be applauded. But they decorated her house with total color. She was a painter of great colors. And they had flowers and fruit and wonderful kind of offerings of food that was colorful all through the house. So you walked in and you couldn't be sad. You just had to say, yes, she's still here with her vibrant color.
But isn't that just a total celebration of life? I remember being in Thailand and seeing what I thought was a festival. I assumed it was a marriage or something like that. It was actually a funeral. But it was just so bright and beautiful. I was like, well, yeah, what a fabulous celebration.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, you know, even if it's a young person that dies, they've been on this earth and they've had their time, and let's celebrate that. You know, was there something worth celebrating? Let's celebrate it. Because take a moment, let's stop and look at that life and just be happy. And if you can remember the wonderful, positive, good things, the laughter, the jokes, the sense of humor, the use of color, the enjoyment of clothes, of shoes, whatever, bring it all out and look at it and remember that person.
Well, I think you are leaving an incredible imprint of colour everywhere you go, which is just fabulous. Can we have a look at that quilt again? Because
yeah, absolutely.
We've got our hands on an exclusive in here.
Yeah.
I also love the fact that I can wear heels with you, Kaffe. Thank you for being lovely and tall, by the way.
Oh, great.
Now, this fabric is available.
Yeah, yeah.
Just wonderful.
That's the rake, and then here's our little squiggle and the gazania.
Yes, it's all in there.
Yeah. So, you know, with the bits that you've got, you could definitely make this quilt easily. And then the nice blue and white gazania on the back.
Oh, I love that. It is beautiful. I grew up, my mum has a thing for blue and white pottery. Asiatic pheasant was her thing.
Yeah.
And so this, for me, I know that she's going to be at home just going, oh,
while we've got quilts out, so I'll show you another one that I got. This is a batik inspired. I mean, you know, taking my checkerboard batiks. Because one of the things about that I love to do is a very simple batik that has this strong outline. That's why the big, strong stripes in this quilt. But here's just taking every checkerboard that I did in the collection, over 2 collections, and putting them together.
And actually, the way that it's quilted makes it look as though each of these checkerboard pieces has been pieced together. That is the patchwork.
Yeah, it feels pieced.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I've done a quilt like this that was all pieced. But it was fun just taking big squares, you know, 10-inch squares of fabric and sewing them together. And you could do this with polka dots.
Look at that.
You could do this with flower prints, with stripes. You know, it'd be wonderful fun to do it all with stripes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, we had your beautiful half-moon quilt. That was the first big Kaffe quilt collection that we sold here, because obviously we're still a very new channel.
Yeah.
And a laptop, but it was that stripe.
Right.
It was that yarn-dyed stripe
Yeah.
that you had, which was just exquisite.
Yeah.
And these batiks, the same. The feel.
And this is fun. This is just big circles overlapping at the background. You know, these backings are 108 inches, so that you know, you can do something really big with those.
And so when you, because like you said, they have that extra width, don't they? So you can do. And is that, so when you do these designs, are you designing knowing that it's going to be a backing, knowing that that's what you're intending it for?
Because I have to limit it to 10 colors, which doesn't sound like 8.
Limits
I think
you
it's eight colors I have to limit it to, which for me is a terrible limitation.
Kaffe, who limits you? Who limits you?
The production of these, in order to get the printing to go on to that 108 inches, they have to be careful.
Oh, so it's a print thing, not
it's a print thing.
I was going to say, that's a brave person that ever tries to control your colour. Who has final say at home then, when you decorate your home?
Oh, it's a sort of a toss-up, you know. Brandon's down in his big beige, wonderful, elegant room. Actually, it's quite elegant. I mean, it has white on white and really plays with that. But we do the house together. You know, I mean, he comes up through, and you know, I'm saying I'm trying this. One of the things that people say to me, "Do you ever sleep?" No, what I do have is a wonderful friend who has a fantastic eye, and he will come along and encourage me when I'm just losing faith in something, because the best designers in the world lose their way. You know, we're floundering around and we think, oh, damn, I thought I was good, but it's not working today. And then he'll come in and say, it is working. It's fabulous. All you have to do is just take away blah, blah, blah. And so, and I do the same for him, you know, because he's a great designer. His work is very graphic and very jazzy and strong and kind of primitive.
Well, we saw the can-can ladies.
Yes, exactly.
With a flash of fish.
You can. We have some very funny sense of humor, and so that's great. You know, when he comes out with these designs like that, and he did one of great big decorative fish that was just incredible. I mean, swept the world. Everybody was buying that up, and it was a big scale. I mean, each fish was about that big. Amazing.
Oh, the fun that you must have doing all of this, and that's the absolute joy of it. I mean, this. Yeah. I often say about your fabrics, you can't be sad looking at them. You're not allowed. It's not possible. I defy you to look at that and feel sad. It's not. So you bring this this inspiration. One of the ladies that put on one of your exhibitions, because of course there are two places in the world that you've been the only textile artist to have solo shows, the Victoria and Albert magazine,
that's right.
Museum in this country, but also Minneapolis Institute of Art.
Yeah.
And now, is it the director or something there? And she says that you can't help but feel joy. Yeah.
Well, that's very nice of her.
When you see your work.
But she also said, you know, someone said to her, her name is Lotus Stack.
Yes.
I can never remember anyone's name, but when you have a name that's like a poet, Lotus Stack, how wonderful. But anyway, someone said to her, you know, with Kaffe Fasset, you have to be careful. You don't go too far. And she said, au contraire. I thought it was great.
Find me that line that is a step too far.
Yeah, let's go there.
What would be too far?
I don't know. You know, if everything didn't work. You know, I'm always after harmony, you know, which surprises people to hear. But even if I have 100 colors in something, particularly if I have 100 colors in something, I want it to be gorgeous. I want it to all add up and make you feel good. I don't want you to have to run and vomit over the edge because it's so awful. You know what I mean? You don't want to upset people. You want to make them feel inspired. You want beauty.
Yes.
And that's, you know, I was very interested when somebody started talking about the art, the way it's going in our culture, how it's getting more and more kind of ugly and shocking and bizarre and veering away from beauty. I love that. It's so fresh and blue. But, you know, we need beauty in our lives, and that's why I'm making this palette and making these fabrics so that people can put together incredible furnishings for their houses or clothes, you know, I mean, children's clothes and things like that.
This is it. Yeah, not just children's clothes, Kaffe. I've got my eye on a few of these.
Quite right.
Just exquisite. Now, it's interesting to hear that sometimes even you, who a man who says that actually through my life I've been very lucky to have this feeling of confidence, has a day when actually things maybe don't go quite the way you want, because we often get emails in from viewers who say, I've lost my mojo, I've lost my sewing mojo, how do I get it back?
Yeah. Well, you keep going. And that's the thing. It's very difficult sometimes. What I do is sort of take a walk and go out and change the air and, you know, get up off your chair and move around a bit. And then just walking out into a neighborhood. I'm telling you, I mean, we just, between shows here, we just took a walk around this neighborhood.
Did you?
It is so wonderful. It is so packed with gorgeous ideas. If anybody really needs inspiration, please come to this part of Birmingham and you know, knock around. It's gorgeous. It's a really eclectic area around here. And during the daytime, you know, it has a completely different feel. At night, there are so many different artistic studios and things, and they come alive, and the music. I bet.
And we have something on a Friday or Saturday, the Digbeth Dining Club is what it's called. And they shut off a whole street and street food.
Yeah.
All different nationalities, different times. And the colours and the sounds and the smells and the music, it's beautiful.
Yeah.
In just in a little small little parcel of Birmingham, and I love that about a place.
Well, I mean, every step we took on our little walk of half an hour was just so full of color and texture and wonderful ideas. You know, I mean, you know, people say, where do you get your ideas from? very often they'll come from some graffiti in the street or something like that.
So when we see you hanging out in Digbeth, we know that you're getting ideas for your
sure.
quilts of Birmingham.
Yeah.
We want that to happen. Beautifully girly.
Yeah, yeah. And it becomes
so.
quite lavender, doesn't it? You take pink and put it on sky blue and it becomes a kind of lavender story.
Because you could, I mean, if you mix in, if you're doing for a little girl's bedroom, something like that, I think that's the joy of yours, is that there is something for everyone. Just in these colourways. So, you know, you've got that, and I know many a little girl that would absolutely love that. And the backing of that quilt that you showed me there.
Yeah.
And suddenly you've got something incredibly girly. And yet, by just changing a colour,
Yeah.
really masculine.
Well, and that's the thing that's exciting about doing colorways. You know, you've done a fabric that is very sort of delicate shells and things, and then you put it into hot Chinese red, lacquer red, you know. It just comes flamingly to life. Or put a black background. I've just done an orchid print of Phillips with a black background. And it's like, you know, it's so oriental.
Strong.
Yeah, very strong.
Really strong.
Yeah, it'll be a very contrasty quilt. And those, you know, there's room for everything. And sometimes something that's like black and white shoes dancing on the tabletop is very exciting. You know, you want a bit of high contrast and sharpness.
So this orchid on black, when we go to Japan for your other book that we're
Yes, right. We're choreographing.
From Birmingham to Japan, I'm not sure that you'll have as many offers of bag carrying for Birmingham, but they're lining up for Japan, let me tell you. Is that the start? Could this be the start of what's next?
You never know. You never know. Yeah, sure. I mean, yeah, because once I've done the fabrics, then you start thinking, all right, what quilt is that going to go into? And when that quilt is finished, where is it going to look the most exciting? Like the next book we're doing is all about American quilts, looking at the American Museum and taking these fantastic antique quilts and doing my version of them.
Oh, wow.
And Brandon's and Liza Lucy's. And then we go off to America and we photograph them in typical kind of New England American kind of settings, you know, with barns and stone walls and wonderful kind of craggy textures of New England. So that's going to be very exciting.
That would be incredible.
Yeah.
Oh,
so that's a whole nother thing. Instead of going for the romantic Italian, you know, Moroccan exoticness, you go to this kind of very classic old American. And, you know, certain parts of America are fabulously antique and preserved, and a real respect for the old ways of doing things, the old colorings and the old. And of course, it's the home of American quilts.
Of course.
I mean, of patchwork quilts, you know. So every town has a good shop or two or three, and then you've got quilt museums and quilt exhibitions and wonderful quilt publications and so forth. So it's exciting to be there.
It's your Mecca to Houston.
Yeah.
I can't believe
Exactly.
that we're nearly another hour has nearly gone.
Right.
Can you not just stay for a week? That would be amazing, at least.
Well, I hope people will come and see me in Birmingham and get a book signed and say hello.
How long are you at Festival of Quilts for?
Festival of Quilts will be here. Today's Friday, isn't it? So Saturday, and I think we're off Sunday. So
Yeah, today's Thursday.
Today and tomorrow.
Tomorrow. Wonderful.
Right.
Wonderful.
We are live, aren't we?
Yeah, no,
Are we
absolutely.
You know, I never know when things are pre-recorded.
No. We are live and proud.
Yeah.
Proud to be live. I would offer you a lift to Festival of Quilts, but last time I put producer Paul in my car, I nearly gave him an anaphylactic shock. He's allergic to dogs and cats and everything else, so maybe not. Oh, and horses as well. He's like, yeah, you've got a horse rug, haven't you, in your car? Imagine. Now, if you're going for barn doors and things like that, imagine a saddlecloth in some of these.
Yeah.
Because some of those, I mean, when you look at sort of the Western saddles and the and the Indian colours there.
Oh yeah, and that's a huge influence. All those American woven blankets and things.
Yeah.
I mean, they're wonderful geometry, and the baskets, these great geometric patterns on baskets. All of that stuff went into my knitting when I first started.
Oh, we've barely touched on your knitting, and we need you back. We need you back more. Will you come back another day, Keith?
I'd love to.
Oh,
yeah,
we would so love to.
As long as I
have you
get
back.
you to do your homework and give me the questions.
Well, I will insist. I will insist.
yeah,
You'll
great.
see me on Mastermind in the black chair.
Yeah.
Specialist subject, Kaffe Fasset. But no, but it was a joy, and I got absolutely riveted in your books, in your story. I mean, you say everybody should, their autobiographies are of interest, but yours was abundant and just a fabulous read. And if you don't have his Kaffe's autobiography, buy it, grab it. It's a
Dreaming in
great...
Color.
Yes.
Yeah. It took me a long time to come up with that title, But one of the things is, I'm very glad you pronounced my name properly. You can imagine I get every pronunciation going around the world. But Eliza says, you're safe with Kaffe.
Yes.
So if
Kaffe
people want to
Fasset,
remember.
safe asset.
Yeah, exactly. There we go.
Yes.
There we go.
And we haven't even touched on the fact that you were, in fact, Frank.
Yes.
That's another story.
That is another story.
Okay, thank you so much. We've got literally 20 seconds. So I need to tell you what is coming up tomorrow. Let's take a look. This week is just incredible. Tomorrow we've got Anna Marie Horner. Actually, Anna. That's how she pronounces it, isn't it?
Yeah.
So we're going to welcome Anna Marie at 8 a.m. And then Lucy's quilting, and the whole day is all about Anna Marie. Today, of course, is all about you, Kaffe.
Yeah.
We are celebrating you, your colour, everything else. Thank you so, so much. You've been an absolute joy. Thank you so much. Come back soon.
Right.
And we'll see you soon.
Thank you very much. It's
Thank
been
you.
a joy.
Thank you. Bye-bye.